right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the You Don't Need a CMO Podcast, episode 2, technically, right?
Episode 2,
but the first episode in this format. To my right, we have Chris Hanson, founder of You Don't Need a CMO. I'm Ryan Sullivan, podcast producer and host. To my left, we have Anthony Giordano, founder of Monad Marketing. So Chris, I don't know, do you want to do kind of like a little intro or just kind of let them know why we're here and what you guys do?
Yeah, so I think most people probably are familiar with You Don't Need a CMO and who I am. I founded a few startups, different industries, came into marketing kind of late, switched over, started doing startup marketing, and slowly that's evolved into You Don't Need a CMO. Right now, we're kind of a hybrid of an agency and community. Over the next 2 to 3 months, that's going to transition into something totally different. I can't get into the details of what that is yet, but you will hear about it very soon.
Cool. I'm Anthony Giordano, and I've spent my career marketing for 15 years, and really I've just been focused on the areas where I think there's growth potential and opportunity. I got into marketing because of that connection with people and brands and businesses. So started off in media agencies because they're the ones that are closest to the customers.
Yep.
Worked my way up through the media agency world and was heading up business development for MEC for a while. And then my next kind of area of growth was really internationally. So moved over to Dubai, fortunate enough to have the opportunity to take a leadership role at MEC in Dubai on the Nestle account. Helped to transition them from a very traditional marketer to more of an omni-channel marketer, and with the team there, really launched some great campaigns, a bunch of award-winning campaigns. And then the next facet or next evolution of my career was to really focus on the startup space. I started the innovation practice at MEC in the Middle East, and then transitioned that to my own company, Monad, where I work with founders on marketing and growth.
Cool. Yeah, so we're going to kind of get into, your background in a little more detail. You don't need a CMO. We're all about marketing startups, teaching startup founders to market and be able to understand marketing from a technology standpoint. A lot of our followers, community, tend to be people who have a technical background, developers, potentially finance background, and they don't really know too much about marketing beyond what people have heard out there about Facebook, Google, and occasionally the old school, print marketing type stuff. So we're kind of gonna, delve into basically both of us having dealt with, I don't know how many startups you talk to a week. I talk to probably over 100 in various contexts, but kind of. I kind of want to, go through and talk about what's different between marketing a startup and maybe some of these other accounts that you've done, because you've seen both sides a bit. And I think you've worked with some small businesses.
I've worked with small businesses that are local businesses and don't necessarily have that ambition of a startup, right? To scale to a multi-billion-dollar business. Then with startups, and then also on the very large marketer side, like Nestle and Novartis.
But okay, so going back into what we're discussing, so small businesses, probably most marketers, marketing agency people, interns, founders start off in the small business world if they're not coming from a brand or another agency. And I think even startup founders a lot probably work maybe in a different business development capacity, but since it's so ubiquitous and out there, you're taught a certain way to think about marketing as far as, let's say you're a lawyer or something, which is probably that lawyer, real estate, probably more typical for marketers to deal with than retail or restaurants, given, kind of the differences in what's involved. You've got a lawyer, you have maybe a marketing channel, AdWords, local SEO, whatever it may be, and boom, you just copy their copy, maybe enhance it a little bit, right? And generally speaking, you don't get results because most marketers don't get results. Startups need to get results.
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory. Yeah. If you're not getting results as a company, your investors are not going to be happy. Your team is not going to be motivated. and eventually your life is going to collapse around it. So it's kind of, when we're dealing with startups, especially the earlier stage ones, it's really marketing is really a life or death.
Could save
definitely.
It could save the entire company.
A win or a fail, basically.
A lawyer or a real estate company or a big brand they're always going to have clients. They have most businesses, services companies get contracts through referrals and their network.
Which is also marketing.
Which is also part of marketing.
Paid advertising. And a lot of times, people who are especially new to marketing do focus so much on marketing, paid ads.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
Google
it,
and Facebook.
Primary.
Right.
It could be
and they don't
a
think
number.
that really marketing is every connection point between your business and your customer.
You're a walking market of yourself.
You're the best marketer of your own
Exactly.
business when you're starting.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time one of your employees or a contractor has an interaction with somebody else, that's also part of marketing. How do you arm those people with the right information to be able to go and really put
Word of
forward
mouth
the
is
product?
probably it's probably the best. I mean,
Yeah.
like it has to be. I mean, and maybe not the most, broader to get like the numbers, but effective.
Definitely,
Yeah.
and it builds trust. I'm sure we'll talk more about trust during
Yeah,
this.
that's definitely we have to.
But yeah, it is one of the most trustworthy channels. And can it scale? Well, if you just rely on one person and sort of organic, then no, word of mouth will probably not scale that well, except for a limited number of products that just are amazing experiences.
Right.
Sure.
But
But everybody
how do
wants
you
to know, yeah.
how do you create the structure, the processes, the information so that something like that can scale?
The fundamentals apply at a greater level. I was just talking to a guy has a company called Learn Lounge. We did an event at a workshop at it's called StartEd, or like an ed tech accelerator. They were doing a 1-week program. We went and we did a workshop there. They're building a student ambassador program to bring people in. It's like kind of like tutors. The school already provides the tutors. They just have to get the students involved. And that's the value, reduce, I almost said churn rate, but that's probably not the term for kids that are not graduating.
Attrition?
Yeah,
but-
attrition.
Yeah.
But, that shows you
Same
where my
thing.
head is at, yeah.
Yeah.
But, so I was thinking that's really a word of mouth referral strategy. You're just adding tools into the playbook. So whether it's email, whether it's social media, influencers, ads, all the same essentials that are being used in a business-to-business referral setting can be used in new capacities.
Yeah, and they can be compared to what you would initially think of as marketing channel, digital marketing channels,
Sure.
or even TV. I mean, you can look at them and compare on a customer acquisition cost something like a street team.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's exactly what we do with ParkU, which is the main acquisition channel are brand ambassadors that are hired and then given the information to go out and properly engage with people to get them on the platform. And
Right.
they're actually more efficient than about 5 or 6 different digital channels that we've also tested.
Now, to go into that in one more detail, so for people who've been coming from a traditional marketing background, how would you say those kind of people can address testing out these different channels if they're not aware in their industry of how the basics, where to get started?
Yeah, I mean, where to get started is really customer first. I mentioned that's why I got into marketing, but it is really the foundation of, okay, how do I know how to market something? Just go out and ask your customers. And if you don't have any potential customers, or you don't have any current customers, find out who you want as customers.
Exactly.
Go speak to them. Where do you find out information? And that can be social channels, that can be personal conversations, it can be whatever it is. And then what are the things you can do in those channels to have your brand interact in the right way?
Yeah.
Is it content? Is it ads? Is it hiring a street team to go out on the street? That's basically the foundation of it, is where are the customers,
And
where
then
they getting
from
the
there,
information.
it kind of should
And I think-
basically not take off, but you would then
Well,
go in a direction. You
Yeah,
find
and then
what
you
works.
want to put in your testing process. You want to make
Exactly.
sure that when you put something out there, you're able to measure it. Okay, And the simplest thing, how much are you spending? How much response are you getting? Whether it's either new customers or some metrics in between them being reached and being new customers.
Sure.
Make sure from the beginning, which is not always done, is to make sure that you can track how much response you're getting.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, kind of one other thing, with respect to startups kind of acquiring this knowledge, everybody's going to be familiar with customer interviews. Every single accelerator in the book, from the big ones, Y Combinator, Techstars, etc., to the small local ones, emphasize the principles of a lean startup and doing customer interview tests.
Yep.
But it's all centered around the product for the most part. You're trying to build a product that fits the market. What people don't realize is the process that us sophisticated marketers use to do branding and messaging and even channel, research or acquisition research is essentially the same questions that you're asking for a product. We're just thinking about it in terms of how we can apply it to the marketing.
I mean, when I've worked with some founders, we've been doing customer interviews, and I'll put on the questionnaire basically what I just said to you, which is, okay, where do you get your information from? Where do you find out about new things from? And I've been questioned, why do we need that on this questionnaire? I'm like, well, if you don't know how people are going to find out about your product, then you're going to have a much tougher time, actually getting it out there, and it's a lot more.
It seems almost like too simple of a question.
Yeah.
It's like the cliches or truths thing. Like a lot of them are true for a reason, right?
Yeah. And then build on it. Okay, if you have a channel, that's highly competitive and highly cluttered with either your direct competitors or just cluttered in general, then consider that, and maybe that's not the best channel to start in, right? Because when you're talking about startups, local businesses, the resources are limited. You're not going to overspend anybody. So you have to prioritize the spaces that you think you can capture a good amount of share there, get a good presence there.
And just because people in the same industry or companies in the same industry are using that channel doesn't mean that it's your best channel to use, right?
Yeah.
I think the one thing, I think you can go too far in terms of being scared away from a certain channel, especially in industries that have been around for a while, or where people have seen significant success if it's in their own niche. There's a reason why those companies are using that channel. It's not to say other channels can't have a return from you, but especially when you're trying to build up that beta, whatever it is, audience, you've got to go where the money is. You can spend some time testing out other channels, but I think, and in one way in particular that we use to, and I don't know if you've ever done this, to eliminate a certain channel, is to look and see if competitors spent money on it or had traffic from it, and then stop using it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's an indicator.
I don't think because there's high clutter that you avoid something. I mean, there's high clutter on many channels. But you do need to understand what you're getting into.
Yeah.
If you're going to, if Facebook and Instagram are going to be your main marketing channels when you start, you have to be aware that costs have increased dramatically in the last 2 years. And if you look at a case study from 2 years ago about a competitor in your space, and they talk about a, acquisition cost of X, just be aware it's going to be 2, 3, 4X.
At this point.
And
thus it will continue
exactly
in this direction, or most likely. Okay.
Cool. Getting into, I think, people like to hear a lot about like individual marketing channels, and obviously it's such a different path for any industry, and you have to do research into what is there. But I guess kind of quickly, in your experience, if you could go through the do's and don'ts, what is something that is not good for amateurs? And amateur is an offensive word, but
it's an honest word. I mean,
novices to get into, versus things where people can pick it up easily and kind of use it while you're fundraising or working on that next round.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe amateurs and novices and experts is kind of one way to break it out, but I would think that probably another way you'd want to look at it is what will you get immediate response from, and what will you have to do over a period of time. And especially in early stage businesses and local businesses, there's a huge tendency to prioritize direct response, immediate, what can I get an immediate response
right now,
very quickly. User acquisition over branding. And I think now as we're starting, as some of these startups from 6 and 8 and 10 years ago have grown, the emphasis on branding is a lot higher. And even the FANG companies now, you saw the largest increases in spending. A report just came out, I believe yesterday, showing that now they're increasing spending significantly and spending hundreds of $millions on more branding activities.
Right.
So it's certainly important. And to get to your question, I think you need to have a mix of channels and use them appropriately. So, your digital media channels are really important to test out some concepts, the way that you speak about your value proposition, who you target, learn as much as you can about who you're targeting and how you're communicating that. Not necessarily look to them as long-term sustainable customer acquisition channels, just because the opportunity, it's all about sort of balancing the cost and the benefit. And right now, the cost bar has just swung really high. But then you want to find channels that really can help build the business long term, and that's where you do need to be testing something and really testing one at a time. Is that content to build SEO? Is that a referral program? What are these type of things that podcast? Yeah. What are these things that you're not going to see immediate return on, but you're going to focus on one because you really believe it fits with your business and your customer, and then you're going to kind of see, all right, X number of months from now, are we successful in this? Should we keep doing it, or then do we look for
But that
another channel?
balance is key.
It is.
For the short and the long. Yeah.
It is, definitely.
Like in anything.
Yeah.
Makes sense too.
And then a lot of times you don't have the flexibility to really go test back and forth. So that's why it's even more important to have the branding laid out initially.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Established.
now I wouldn't say you have to go in there and you don't have to be Amazon, but you definitely want to come in having done your research and having a clear positioning from customer interviews and that kind of thing, because otherwise it's basic statistics, right? It's kind of may confound the results of whatever marketing channels you're running if your branding is not consistent with.
Yeah, and also if you're only running direct response ads, if every time somebody sees something from you, it's our product is better than this, now here's a 25% discount and go buy.
Yeah.
And they never see really why the brand is so impactful.
Or like real
to
like
somebody.
content.
Yeah.
Actual content, right?
Long form video and PR.
A storyline,
right?
something, something.
If the storylines aren't
yeah.
part of it, then
Sure.
you end up just devaluing your brand over time. And now there's finally some research coming out that really enforces this and shows that over time you're probably general guideline to be at slightly above 50% branding, but that does evolve and it's industry specific.
Yeah, through the years, and like, as you said, like previous 10 years, it wasn't that, and But I guess the channels have influenced that probably as well.
Yeah.
And like the actual content, because there was no content. I mean, the content was the ad basically, until you could have an Instagram profile or
Yeah, definitely.
anything on Twitter or Facebook.
Now, what does your branding process look like when you start working with a new client?
Yeah, so it's about understanding why their brand exists, what's really their purpose, why are they there, and helping them perform that in a way that that is relevant both to their business and customer and looks at the long term.
Sure.
Right. So what's your purpose, and you can frame that as a mission statement or a purpose. Kind of two things.
The
at
truth
same time.
about it.
Yeah. And then how are you going to explain the values of what you are, and usually there are a few values to sort of be the foundation of anything you do. This is what's going to come
As
forward.
a subset almost.
Yeah. And then a positioning. How is this then going to be expressed to to customers and prospective customers? And it is done in a collaborative way. I mean, as we mentioned before, marketing is extremely important to especially early stage businesses, but all businesses. But it's also not, okay, bring in the marketing guy and then he'll do stuff.
And just let him go. And no, we need more information, right?
Yeah. And once you develop this branding, everybody has to live it. Everybody has to understand it. When I was heading up marketing for Vegberry, which is a direct-to-consumer business operating out of the UAE, there were people who were going into retail locations and they were selling the product to retailers. It's now available in over 200 stores throughout the UAE, and they had to know, okay, what is this proposition of the food you know? How is this, And granted, there's also to people who English wasn't their first language, so you have to make it something simple, and that's
like a
most
lot of people
important
can understand.
Yeah, everybody in the company has to live it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, it's building the identity, I guess.
Yeah,
for your potential client or whoever.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, going into the international thing, how do you approach that? It's a company that's doing operations in multiple countries or very different markets, U.S.,
You're saying the company is operating in different markets?
Correct. Yeah, they're selling both.
Oh.
So let's say like a SaaS company or.
Yeah, I mean,
because
it depends on their structure.
Right.
So, do they have one global team? Do they have local teams? If you're talking about making sure that the branding is consistent throughout, then you have to develop a clear sort of brand packet. And I definitely learned a lot of this while I was working on Nestle, and we had a campaign, Maggie Diaries, that was conceptualized in the Middle East and then rolled out to other markets. And we had to create this presentation, which then could be served to every market, so they can know, all right, what is this about? How do we implement it locally, and give them the tools?
You got to think about culture too, right? I mean, that's what you're thinking about. Is it going to even apply in this culture? Do they even understand this story? Does it make sense to them? Right?
And that's a great point, because you also have to get insights from the local market up.
Exactly.
So it can't just
ground up.
So it can't
rather
be
than
a
all
stiff
top
position.
down. Yeah. Okay.
It has to be flexible for the different markets.
Got it. I guess so. What, from having done the larger companies to working with startups, once you get into, like, let's say 6 months deep into a project, when do you typically, I know it's a hard question to answer, but when do you typically see results? Because I think a lot of startup founders, they want to work with the market or what CMO, etc. You don't need a CMO, but I take that back. But when do you typically see results? That's a big question.
It is. Yeah. It is, and it's.
But it's a crucial
good question. Yeah. At the same time.
And I mean, sure, I'll give the blanket statement, because it's true that every company is going to be different, and some have different sales cycles, which can be 1 day to months. I think as a marketer, you have to come in and strategically position what are your quick wins that you're going to get. To show things that are showing that people are responding to what you're doing. And then from there, I mean, you really have to advocate for marketing within the company. Mm-hmm. You have to make sure that, that people understand what's going on, that people know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
They want it as much as you want it. And
because you can, with it being such a test and learn experimentation process, especially in growth marketing, there are going to be tests that don't work, and you have to condition people for that at the beginning. So I know
they're thinking, well, isn't that your job? It's supposed to work, right?
Right. I brought you on, so grow it. So I know it's not an exact timeline, but that's sort of the thought process behind how to set expectations and plan for results.
It's human behavior. You're trying to predict it and influence it. I mean,
even the best practices, completely.
Some applications it's just not the same. It doesn't work. There's no one size fits all. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. My kind of perspective on that, I think you should see something pretty quick with the startup.
And when you say something,
let's look at something specific. Let's talk about SaaS or something. B2B SaaS. Let's say a cybersecurity company. If there's not one lead there in 10 weeks, you have a problem.
Yeah.
You need to have something. If one person can discover your site or your app, whatever it is, organically or obviously paid, but I would say if you're paying for it, you should see a conversion. But let's just say you're entering a conversation, they're doing a demo, they filled out a lead form. You've got to see something that matches your customer profile.
Yeah,
I would put it at under 2 months.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, and I think there's an underlying assumption there to your point, which, what was the metric that you referenced was a lead. Yes. That's something that's marketer controlled. You can bring in a lead.
You can bring in a lead.
Right? But if you're going to say you should definitely get a sale within 2 months, well, maybe you brought in 15 qualified leads, and
if you're not, the marketer is generally not responsible for the sale. They're not responsible for the product.
Depends where.
Depends where.
Consumer-focused startup, I'd say
you would be.
Yeah, you are a lot more accountable to sales.
The roles.
And we do a lot of
flexes.
I have a company, the last podcast we did, Task Human, is a client, their fitness app. We wanted them to change the opening screen. There's a video of Jeff on the opening screen. Sign-up rate of the people who download, who actually sign in with Facebook, 10-15%. So you're getting maybe like 10,000 downloads a month, and they're not paying.
Yeah.
Totally free at that point.
They're just churning.
And we're thinking, how is that? Where's that coming from? Are our sources of downloads low quality?
Yeah.
Do we need to be doing push notifications? That's both on the marketing end.
Yeah.
Occasionally there's stuff on the product end, but in that case your marketer has to make it clear.
Well, you identified that was...
that they've identified that. Yeah. If they haven't identified those problems, they're not doing their job either.
And to that point, as much as you can proactively build in places where you're getting some response or feedback from customers, whether that's just looking at their behavior, or if that's actually building in a short questionnaire, multiple choice, or something that they have the opportunity to feedback information. If you have 10,000 people downloading this and 0 people are saying anything and they're just churning, then I don't know, that could be that maybe it's bot traffic, or maybe there's a different answer. But I think what you can do as a marketer is build in those feedback points
and try to find it best you can, right?
Yeah, and there's no standard process for that, but
yeah, I mean there are a lot of tools out there, certainly. You get some of the, like, for websites like Hotjar and things like that, will help you to at least see what's happening on the site, and to see heat maps and recordings, which is a nice
where
thing.
People are navigating to.
Yeah. I mean, you can certainly send out SurveyMonkey and surveys, through, if you have a good email list, you can do that. There are tools out there, but you have to customize it to what you need.
One other thing to kind of get into, and I know we're kind of shifting around, but second podcast, picking your brain.
Go for it.
Personalization.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies will have different customer segments. Maybe you're an ed tech company, you're targeting teachers, you're targeting students. Maybe you go even deeper. You're targeting poor performing students, you're targeting good performing students. The good performing students are overachievers. The bad performing students are going to get kicked out. But the product is both the tutoring product, applicable to both of them. On every channel, you can always cut down further, whether it's email, doing personalized campaigns, ads, content. Where do you stop the personalization? Because in many cases, when the company is small, and by small, I don't necessarily mean not profitable. I just mean small enough where you're not overwhelmed by the volume you're getting, whether it's downloads or basically
you can handle it.
You can handle it.
Keep track of this.
Which leads you into a trap sometimes of over personalizing. If you're spending money to target very specific consumer groups, let's say Facebook ads, and it's an audience of 1,000 people, and you're spending $50 in a week or something, which a lot of early stage marketers do, or they do suggest doing, because they think that the smaller the better, and you're cutting the waste. Most Facebook advertisers will know larger audiences, in a lot of cases, tend to do better. Because of the statistic variability
really
thing.
Niche.
Rather than going really niche. And there's a value to niching, but
that was one of my questions, actually. That's perfect.
I think this can be conflated with the product thing as well, the product branding question, in that people tend to over niche on channels without any evidence, just based on pontification.
Yeah. So if you take the consumer side,
right,
would you agree that an individual consumer wants everything personalized for them? An ideal world. Right now, they know that personalization is possible, and they expect personalization.
Without being too weird.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they expect
People like
ad to say their name necessarily.
No, but they do. It makes them feel good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alexa.
Yeah. Personalize my ad.
Right there.
Yeah. So consumers certainly want it. So as personalized as you can get, and if you can do it quantitatively, then I think that's your best.
That's your best bet.
That's your best bet.
Keep track.
Yeah, and I think you brought up some numbers, right? Which, okay, how much is it costing you to reach somebody? How much is it costing you to convert them in these, niche audiences? I agree with you that, with the amount of machine learning that Facebook has right now, in a lot of situations, it does make sense to go after the large audience and just have Facebook optimize it. You'll end up.
Can you break that down for people who don't know what that means? With respect to the machine learning on Facebook ads.
Yeah, so what Facebook is going to do is know a whole lot of data about you, which are the things that you probably expect them to know, like your interests and your friends, and then also a lot of things that you don't even realize you're doing. So when you're looking at an ad, are you scrolling past it really quickly, or are you hovering over it? Yeah, when you're on other websites that you don't even realize you're still signed on to Facebook, what are you looking at there? How are you interacting with things there? So all of this data, which are billions of data points. The Facebook ad system is going to use those to optimize to the people who are reacting or responding to your ads the most. So their machine learning says, okay, company X, you want conversions. So every time a conversion happens, they're going to see all the different behaviors, traits of that person. And once you have over a certain number of conversions, usually it's like 50 in a week is the minimum on Facebook, then it can start developing insights about the type of person or type of people which are more likely to respond.
Profile or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. So then it can optimize on something like hovers over this type of content and doesn't hover over this type of content, which you would never think of when you're creating your target audience.
Okay. So that it almost, if once it has enough, it'll feed itself, basically.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. From a simple perspective.
Yeah. And if you think that the most important purchasing decision is somebody a high quality or a high achieving or low achieving student,
Sure.
That may be correlated to results 50% of the time. Mm-hmm. But actually, there's some unknown thing like, I don't know, that they were in a music class when they were in second grade.
They have the same teacher or something.
Yeah. And that's something that's within Facebook's database. Yeah. Then it will start optimizing towards that, which maybe has a 70% correlation to somebody who responds to your ad.
It's really
it goes deep. If you play around with this in a basic way, you'll see it. And I think this is a totally separate note, but I think with ads in particular, when you put your own money into it, it's very easy to learn the lesson of what's wrong and what's not. And I will say, particularly when I was putting other people's money into Facebook ads, I kept doing personalization, A/B tests, ABCDE tests of really extraneous crap that didn't matter at all. And when it was my own money, then those A/B tests, and this goes for anything really, but those A/B tests start to stick a lot more, and you really get a gist of what works and what doesn't. And there's some general trends with Facebook in particular, and then we were talking about the AdWords thing before we started. If you want to get into that as well with the changes between how paid is going to get more clicks and.
So one thing on testing, and this is something that I don't see a lot of, especially speaking about people getting into marketing. They do tests, and then, variation B wins, and now I want to do more of that. And then they continue, and then they're 4 tests in, and now it's, a month or two later. They had no idea what test 1 is now long forgotten. Like, build a knowledge base. It can be an Excel sheet. It can be anything. It can be Post-it notes that you stick on a wall that, you have the same wall every day. But remember the stuff you've tested and what are the insights, and then what are the areas that you thought, okay, maybe this is another something that can work. What are your future test ideas? And that's really important.
You're missing out if you don't. You're not taking advantage.
You don't evolve. You don't grow. Exactly. You just kind of stagnate and keep doing.
Or you could go backwards.
You could go backwards. Yeah.
Reverse, which is not what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous game to play. To just say, I mean, sometimes I do this. Like I did a Tinder dating course once when we were doing Bing ads.
Okay.
It's a funny story, but the numbers were not funny. They were actually pretty serious. Yeah. But we were pretty loose with the A/B tests, where it was just like, let's just do this one thing, and we never kept track of it. And then at a certain point, we just like, what are we doing here? There's no way to do it. Are we going to wipe the whole account and do it again?
Yeah.
And a lot of the companies who we enter with, who have been running, 50, 100,000, whatever they're spending a month on Facebook ads, they have that issue where they have 1,000 campaigns and there's no way to learn from it. I mean, you can try to download it, look at the audiences, analyze it, put it into another tool, but if there's no knowledge base for the data and for the A/B tests, there's no way to know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a shame, testing is not the end game. Testing is the beginning.
To start.
Yeah.
Right.
So your point on Google Ads, and Google made a big change probably about a month ago to change the appearance of search ads, especially the paid search results and also the organic search results. And now they look much more similar, right? There's no big kind of bright colored ad here. Yeah, now it's just obvious. A small black.
You almost have to look a little bit now.
You do,
right?
Yeah. And a lot of people are going to just ignore that, have some blindness to it, and click. So I think that we'll start to see some of the clicks shift towards paid and away from organic. Organic will still be more, but
you can post. We have an infographic for this that I'll give you to post after this. But I think the number's already pretty high as far as people who are clicking on paid versus organic. Totally random thing, but do you do branded ads? So advertise on the brand name.
Yeah.
This is a kinky type thing, but when you run ads on your brand name, even though you're ranking number one for the brand name, you can control where you're directing them. As far as maybe you're putting them on a sales page. SaaS companies do this all the time, or whatever your promo of the week is. And additionally, there are people, if let's say your whole page is you don't need a CMO, you search you don't need a CMO, the 10 search results, the 5 ads, it's all you don't need a CMO. There are people that still won't click on anything, even if you're on the whole page. It's not guaranteed that you get a click. Putting the ad in there helps to guarantee the click, because you can influence the messaging.
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be some waste. There will be people who would have clicked on the organic result that now you're going to pay for. But you also want to block out competitors there. You don't want to have competitors taking up all the paid search results at the beginning. So, and especially when you're, a newer company, may not have the brand recognition. You want to be, front and center. If somebody's searching, you want to make sure that you're really prominent there. So,
that's your job. Or it should be, or especially as like you have somebody or for the from the marketing perspective. Like if you're not, then people are like, why not? They'll start asking questions, right?
I mean, you do see good behavior on site from people who click on a paid search ad of your brand name. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially for DTC, direct to consumer e-commerce businesses, you do see good results.
Yeah, and I think that's not just the trend with Google, Amazon. I mean, it's going to be pay to play.
Oh yeah, for sure.
One thing this is another random thing that I know just because I've been involved investing in I don't think you're involved too much with Instagram or anything like that.
Some depends on the company I'm working with.
I invested in an Instagram automation company with, I'm not going to say who the other person is, but it's a pretty famous person. But
cool.
The point is they keep changing. People use Instagram automation bots to get follow backs, or even to DM sales stuff like sales links, promos, and B2B companies are using this. It's not just e-commerce or fashion or retail or whatever. They keep releasing new updates that puts limits on it and is able to detect automation. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn's already done this. I actually had my LinkedIn account banned for 2 hours on Friday. Oh, no. Not because of automation, which we were using LinkedIn. Don't post this on LinkedIn. But
no, we're good. Could be YouTube.
Don't post on LinkedIn. But because I was having an assistant log into my account.
Okay.
from another location
That was the only reason.
and paying them to send the messages. So it
And you
wasn't
weren't
like
paying
that.
LinkedIn enough, I assume. You didn't have.
I
that,
had
stuff.
no.
I
I'm
paid to do
paying
that before.
$150 a month. So,
Okay, yeah.
but I guess they should introduce.
Yeah.
They're going to be introducing a new tier, so that must
yeah,
be there.
the premium.
But Instagram's actually going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And-
Instagram Premium.
Well, you're going to be
Type of
paying
deal?
for message requests.
Facebook already.
Why wouldn't they, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why wouldn't
Facebook
they?
already.
Yeah.
We used to do sales on Facebook too, where you would message pages like, "I'm gonna redesign your website. Here's
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
screenshot," and it works. But then they've instituted limits on it, and it's harder to do.
Yeah, and that personal communication or bot communication,
Right.
in terms of Facebook, I think that's one of the big opportunities now. That although
Oh, yeah.
the companies are just scratching the surface. Now it's known that it's an opportunity, but I think that in the next few years we'll see a big shift from app-based communications and even video-based communications to more text and more voice interactions with devices. So that's an area where
Plus, voice is just getting huge as well. So
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense, and on all perspectives.
Yeah.
We got Alexa podcast,
So how can you have your same experience? It's not that apps are going away, not that websites are
all,
going away,
yeah.
but how could you take your experience and deliver it
Transfer
over
it.
text or over voice? And
We
that's
have,
something everybody should be thinking
build that
about.
same reference in this different genre.
Yeah.
We had a client that merged basically HubSpot, your blogs into HubSpot newsletters automatically, so you didn't have to do any work. And they basically managed their entire sign-up process through Drift. You never hit a sign-up button.
Yep. Yeah. If you can do that through text, I mean, it's a more natural way for people to get on and communicate, and they are comfortable with interacting with businesses over text and over voice. So if you can do it, that's really where there's one opportunity. It's a less crowded space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, yeah, I think how long we've been going for?
40.
40. Okay, we could do some more. What else do we want to get into? Some hot topics.
I think there's something I mentioned this before, which is about really the goal of marketing right now, which is
Right.
to build trust with people.
I was gonna just say, the trust
Yeah.
topic.
That's big.
It's huge.
And it is something that I'm doing some research on right now and have been for a little while, and I'm going to put out some content on LinkedIn, and then eventually this will turn into more of a formal research paper on
Yeah.
trust and marketing.
Interesting.
But really, if you take a very top line view of marketing, and sort of from the beginning of marketing, that the first sort of known ad is actually in the early Roman Empire, and it was an outdoor flyer which directed people to a gladiator fight. And if you take sort of that one up until the early 1900s of direct sales, people going door to door, or newspaper classified ads,
Yep.
they're really about availability. It's just tell people the thing is
It's
happening.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's here. You
Come
can
get it.
You can go see people fight. You can buy this at your door. You can find this in the newspaper classified. It's available. It's there. Right. And then you see in 1920s to 1950s, this is really people start getting disposable income outside of the Great Depression, and consumerism.
Box
is really,
stores.
Yeah,
Yep.
consumerism is really driven by marketing.
Right.
And there it's, you start to get persuasive language, and there it's, okay, what things are relevant to me, and sort of building the need, building that demand. That's when brand personalities come in, demographic targeting
More
comes
catering
in.
to the individual.
Exactly. Not to the individual yet, but certainly to the type of person.
Okay, gotcha.
Then you get a little later on, and you get to really the 2000s, and that's where you get to more personalization.
Sure.
Social media kicks in. Okay, everybody has their individual profiles online. Brands have their profiles online. Brands should behave more like people, and you get more specific, targeting towards them. And now, in just a 20-year period, now we're at a point with billions of devices and new companies popping up, and new companies using data to personalize things more to each person. We now have a almost unlimited amount of choice with things. So now it comes down to, what is the thing that I can rely on? I see all these messages put forward to me. I have to actually trust what that company is, because so many things
Because
are
there's
made
7
for me.
dentists. Like, I just need one dentist, man. Like,
Exactly, and they all give you the whitest, cleanest teeth.
Right, and they all do the same thing.
And you need a proof point. You need
Exactly.
to see the
there
Google
used to be
ratings.
one, and you had to drive like 30, like back in the day, right? Yeah.
Now you go on Google Maps, you see the reviews. You know, you get
Okay, 3 miles. This guy's 4 miles.
Yeah.
4-star, 4.5 star. Yeah.
Exactly, and that aspect of trust is every contact point you have between your business and a customer. How are you building trust? The people you're speaking with, do they trust you already, or do they not know about you and you have to build that trust from scratch?
Or do they have to trust somebody that you trust?
Yeah,
And then, right, like
Is
you
it
said,
like-
a different connection.
yeah. Is it press that matters to them? Is it an influencer? Is it, you know, how many units you've sold, or you know,
Yeah.
what's the important thing that
To them,
will help
yeah.
them trust you that you're going to deliver?
Which is obviously a big thing for startups, obviously, because there's no trust.
Yeah, and
It's so
you don't
new.
realize that,
Yeah, it's so
or
new.
you know, a lot don't think about it. They just think, okay, hey, this is our thing. It's better than the other option out there. Okay, put it out.
We
and
know it's
people will love
better,
it.
so then other people will know. Like, no,
Exactly.
they won't know.
They won't know.
They don't know what you know.
Yeah.
Unless you tell them and you put it in a way that they can understand it, right?
Yeah, and if you don't have customer testimonials, then okay, what are the other ways
What do
that
you
can
have?
build
Yeah.
trust with them?
A lot of it you can convey through your messaging, though.
Yeah,
And the storyline, yeah.
design has a completely irrationally high influence on trust.
Yeah.
If your product is sold online, your design has to be great, and you see, you know, companies were built this way with Casper and Quip and companies like that.
Cool.
It's essential. There is no. It's like the most. It's one, or maybe like top 3 most important things probably to. Right?
Yeah,
Would you say?
yeah, I would say that right now. I think
Especially if
that's,
we're
that's the
not
one
requiring
theme. Yeah, that's the one thing that really is permeating through all marketing is building trust.
Yeah, I like that you had, and that you started at the beginning too, because you wanted to understand the full perspective. Like I'm like pretty. I'm not a huge history guy, but I like to read history, and like you start to put all the pieces together, right? Like you're
Yeah.
probably reading about the Romans, and then you're going through the trajectory of it,
Yeah,
and you're like, oh wow, I can't believe this is crazy how much this has changed and
Yeah.
gotten tailored.
and when you're in it, it's very tough to.
And
see
you
what
are
the
in it,
trends
so
are.
yeah, exactly. So you're like almost having like it's like almost like an existential thing. You're like, wow, I'm actually like I could be a part of this influence.
Yeah, and you have to take a step back, say, okay, what was different then? From now.
like a
and
Steve
why is
Jobs,
it
like
different?
what am I doing? Like yeah, maybe you know,
Yeah.
different perspective, but yeah, same idea.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think that's we've got some good stuff here.
100%.
I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we're gonna be doing more of these.
Yeah, yeah. This
Ryan will be
is,
hosting it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Thank
So
you for hosting.
yeah, anytime.
And
Thanks
Anthony,
guys.
thanks for
By the
coming,
way, anytime. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
This has been episode 2 of the You Don't Need a CMO podcast. Will be available on all platforms. So that's it. That's a wrap. And enjoy. And make sure to check out the first one as well. So, all right, guys. Unless you guys want to say something to wrap up, then that's about it for
I
me.
think that's good.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Yep. Have fun marketing.